Deputy Anne Rabbitte, please.
Thank you, Ceann Comhairle, and thank you, Minister Sapone. And I welcome the opportunity to talk today also on the statements and on the news of what came out of Cabinet earlier on this week. And Fianna Fáil welcomes Minister Sapone's recent announcement that a full forensic excavation will be conducted at the site of the former Bon Secure Mother and Baby Home in Tuam. We fully support all efforts to bring justice to all survivors of the mother and baby homes and to deliver some peace to relatives and survivors too. This era in Irish history represents a blemish on our collective morality, and we must do our best to do the right and the wrongs of this era. We have reached this point through this tireless work and campaigning of many people. Most notably among them was the lady Catherine Corliss, the amateur historian from Tuam, who slaved behind the scenes for years to investigate the history of the Bon Secours mother and baby homes and finally uncovered the horrific story. Furthermore, a number of survivor groups and individuals have done Ireland a great service by ensuring that this story was heard, even when many people had no interest in listening to it. There is, however, a need to manage expectations, as you have said, Minister, around this excavation. In its report, the expert technical group, which was made up of academic leaders in the field of DNA and forensic science, were honest about their severe technical challenges in many cases, the impossibilities of identifying remains of this nature, which are commingled from many very young children. The expert technical group further stated that there is a need to communicate realistic expectations about what DNA may be able to produce in a complex site such as Tuam. Given the advanced age of many survivors, and this is something I referenced with the Taoiseach yesterday, was the survivors of the Bon Secure Mother and Baby Homes, we believe that it is crucial that the work is done as quickly as possible. As now, and as you have just indicated there in your speech, we don't have timelines. You have given a commitment, and it's welcome for the primary legislation in the first quarter of next year. But you and I and anybody who has ever come in the doors of here realise how difficult it is to get legislation through. And one of the issues I was discussing yesterday was in relation to all the good work that's going on with the various expert technical groups and how you're going to master plan the excavation on a phase-by-phase basis, that would need to be running in tandem with the legislation at exactly the same time, because it's no point in having one part of the jigsaw complete if we're not ready really to come in behind it straight away with the legislation. And it's something that I don't think any member of the House here would want to be the part that we would be holding it up here if it's the legislation, because from what I can gather there's some real complex pieces on it in relation to the Coroners Act, the Local Government Sanitary Act, the Public Health Act, the Criminal Justice Act, be it the forensic evidence and also the location of victim remains. There's an awful lot of work to be done there, and I'm glad and heartened to hear that you're going to work with cross-departments to actually try and pull it together, because that in itself will be fantastic, because while we're using the Tuam site, it's really mapping it from the Tuam site as to how we can actually bring closure maybe to other sites throughout the entire country as well, if need be, but Tuam being the priority at this moment in time. I too, Minister, would like to be associated and acknowledge the work that Dr. Jeffrey Shannon has, who produced the report on human rights as the former site of the mother and baby home. And yet again, Dr. Jeffrey Shanahan, I think, brought a really human aspect to this, in where he chronologically went down through it. And I think absolutely the only way that can be approached is in a phase-by-phase basis. And I think that takes into account the residents that are living locally. It takes into account the survivors who are at the epicentre of all this, but also it brings into account, by the phase-by-phase doing it, it also brings the community with them. And that's the most important thing, because I'd say there was a lot of people, Minister, never thought it would come to this stage. I think they all thought it would be just reports. And I think it would be all just accolades for Catherine Corliss and all that fabulous work she'd done. But I don't think they actually ever envisaged it would come to this stage, that we would have a report that would say we would have phase by phase, and that Government and Cabinet would support it. And we are happy to be part of that support. So that is really productive, and it's heartening to see. and it's very welcome. But there's a wider community that we have to bring with us, because there's a community there that has been silent. And this is hitting a nerve, and it's hitting a very raw nerve, because it is a part of society there where this was a norm. And this is the way life was back in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. So we are touching history, but we're actually going right in under the skin, and there's some families who have never had this discussion. And it is actually going to go right to the heart of them. And I do think the staging it on a phase-by-phase basis, and what the DNA sampling is going to throw up, and people, when they decide to go into their history roots, what it's going to show. But I do think it will bring closure to a lot of very good people. As always, I always reference one or two people when I talk here, Minister, and I know you have met them. And they would be Tommy Ward, who's a good friend of mine, and Pat Duffy, who you would have met. And those people are deeply, deeply grateful for the progress to date. But we cannot stop there. We now need to ensure that the works that were completed, the Commission investigation needs to complete. That needs to be, I don't know, is it on track or where we are with it, but that has got us as an extension, and I'm just wondering, will it be finished by February 2019? Are we on track to see the completion of that works? There is also a concern, Minister, and I think it's only right I would say this. There is a concern that where next then is it? People are fearful that it might turn into a forensic site, as in a site of a crime site. That is some of the commentary that is taking place. And I think maybe you might be able to allay some of that fears going forward, because some residents are afraid that where they're living, is there going to be a crime scene, basically? And I think that's a real question from the residents in Tuam in what they would be wondering about. There is another moral aspect to all of this, Minister, and while we are getting closure in relation to the excavation, the other aspect is in relation to the survivors themselves. And when I talk about the survivors themselves, like, they were deprived in some cases in education, and in some cases they were deprived the opportunity of a proper upbringing or denial access to their records. And I'm just wondering, Minister, and maybe with your cross-departmental work there, that I've mentioned this before, like, some of these people are looking for support. They're old enough where they're trying to get support in relation to their housing supports or their medical supports, or we talk about their counselling supports. I think now more than ever we have to be very real with the supports that we can give to those people, and I definitely think it has to do with the counselling supports. These people need the opportunity to talk. They need to talk with the professionals, they need their voices heard, and they need to feel listened to. And some of these people, Minister, don't have the access to transport, and some of these people are dependent on state support. But we have to be real, particularly the people that are survivors of the Tuam Mother and Baby Home, that if they need access to the counselling service, be it in Ballinasloe or in Galway, we have to find a mechanism to give them that support. Like, it's not like here in Dublin where we can grab the taxi or we can get on the local bus. We don't have all that support. So we need to find a mechanism of supporting the persons that are coming forward saying, I would like the opportunity with counselling. Please, can you help me with this? Or I have issues regarding my housing, because literacy and numeracy would be issues with some of the residents and some of the survivors that I have come across that would like a little bit of help. And if we can liaise with the council, and we have a very good council in Galway County Council, but if there's a mechanism there that we can support the survivors, these are real issues, how we can help them also bring closure. And it shows real support. But, Minister, thank you for what you have done, and thank you for bringing it to action.
Thank you, Deputy Rabbitte.